what Warren means by that is that the Civil War is an event, and probably always will be an event, through which Americans have to somehow define themselves. It was the event that first tested and then destroyed the original American Republic. That's really what the war did. The first American Republic, the one born in the 18th century, the one founded in the Revolution, did not last. It was destroyed in this crisis and conflict that led to disunion over slavery and its expansion, and out of the horrifying bloodletting of that war, the scale of which nobody anticipated at its outset, they were really destroying the first union and forced to forge and create and imagine a new one. And the reason Americans had to forge and reimagine a new union, a new nation, a new republic, was because of the destruction of slavery. Emancipation of 4 million slaves. This is what Warren is really signaling in that statement. And he knew it, and he meant it, even as a Southerner. What really forced Americans to reshape the nation was the liberation virtually overnight of 4 million slaves into some kind of new status, some kind of new definition. It forced a rewriting, a redefinition of the U.S. Constitution in the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, in the first Civil Rights Acts, in the Reconstruction Acts. It is, in effect, a second American founding. So if we want to understand who we are, when we actually sit down and ask those collective questions, what does it mean to be an American? What is the United States? How is it defined under law? Who are we as a people? What do we mean to the world as a nation? We really are forcing ourselves, if we care, we really are forcing ourselves to go back to the 1860s and understand why that first republic was destroyed, why slavery tore apart the American Union, when it did, and then how and why the country had to find some way to put itself back together, and it had to redefine what America would be. That redefinition comes in the 13th Amendment, which ends slavery, the 14th Amendment, which is arguably the most important thing in our Constitution because it ushered in the Equal Protection Clause and birthright citizenship. That would never have happened. In fact, there never had been a definition of American citizenship until Americans were forced to define who the ex-slaves were. To define them as citizens was the first time Americans had any general definition of citizenship. And then ultimately the 15th Amendment, which was the Voting Rights Amendment. That entire regime of legal constitutional reimagination happened within a handful of years. It was in a sense, as now many historians call it, a second American Revolution. And it was a new revolution. And therefore a kind of, well, it's what Lincoln called it in the Gettysburg Address. It was a new birth. The place was recreating itself. So what Robert Penn Warren means with that language of, the Civil War being our felt history, or the Civil War being our national oracle, the place we go so often to try to understand, so who are we? Or how does our past speak to us? That's what he really means. Now, it's not the only event we go to for that, obviously. I mean, we've had other major turning points. We constantly today refer to the Great Depression, or the New Deal, or the Second World War, or the Industrial Revolution as a process. There are many places in our past where, when we're thinking in big picture terms, we can go to and begin to understand who we are today, how we've come to where we are. But none more than that most divisive, most destructive, most vexing story of why this country had such an all-out civil war when it had it.